thank you for joining us today. I am Nina Newman. I'm the Associate Head of School for Advancement and the Director of Admission and Financial Access. And I'm really thrilled to spend some time with you sharing about community engagement at King. Community is an integral part of the educational experience that our students have here. And we're very proud of that element of our school culture. I'm joined by two colleagues, and I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their role and the programs that they're involved in. And then we'll switch it right over to Q&A. We'll use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions, please put them right in there, and we'll make sure that we answer them. Clyde, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nina. Um, so my name is Dr. Clyde Beverly III. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging here at King. I'm in my fifth year here, and just a little overview of DEIB here at King. We like to call ourselves, we like to say that it's a fully integrated approach in which it is seen throughout our school community, whether it's in our classrooms, in our hallways, the way we engage with students, the way we engage with families. Um, we serve as resources for our faculty and staff. As a team and I, we have not just myself, we have coordinators who are in all three of our divisions, as well as in athletics, and individuals who work with our staff and business office. And so when we talk about that student and community engagement, we look at those different things, whether it's our student programming, anything we do, we look to educate, we look to engage, and we also look to empower. And so, whether it's in a looking at the books and things that we read, or the way we engage through student groups such as our affinity groups or different clubs and things like that, we really do try to create a space where folks feel like they belong here, and we feel like this is all aligned with our mission and our virtues, those things that anchor us as an institution, and also fully aligned with our educational philosophy, as well as we looking at the holistic student, finding out who we are as individuals, who we are as a collective, and then also our inquiry based and project based learning as how do we know what's true. And so we like to do all of that, and just integrate our DEIB philosophy throughout all those things.
So hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Raitt. I am in my 33rd year here at King School. I am the director of the King Care Service Learning Program, as well as Assistant Director of Global Education. And King Care Service Learning Program is incorporated into the students' school day in lower, middle, and upper school, providing the students with opportunities to engage with others within the King community, but also with our local, national, and international partner organizations. And through those connections, the students are really learning from others, and they're also discovering or exploring further areas of interest or their strengths, and also seeing how they can use their interest and strengths to make an impact. I like to say discover, engage, make impact, sort of as a motto. There are various ways that King Cares is incorporated into the students' day in all three divisions. For instance, it may be integrated into classroom units of study. It may be part of grade level activities or projects. It may be part of lower, middle, or upper school divisional programming or our advisory programming. King Cares is also incorporated into the club structure that exists in lower, middle, and upper school. I also work with colleagues in the departments across the school, for instance, with athletics, art and design, performing arts, history, English, and global education. And there are all school King Cares events that occur over the course of the school year. And there also is Parents Association King Care programming, and with lots of activities, subcommittees that are very active over the course of the school year. There are opportunities beyond the school day after school in lower, middle, and upper school for students who would like to participate in weekly activities on and off campus, and also go to some of our local partner organizations. Starting in 8th grade, students also have the opportunity to apply to our Global Ed travel programs that have a service learning component. And in upper school, students can also become ambassadors with some of our local organizations. They can be on youth committees, also apply for internships. I'm always so excited that I get to work with students, colleagues, and families across the whole community over the course of the school year. And it really gives me the opportunity as I work with students. A lot of our events, projects, and activities are all student initiated. They're led and organized by the students. And when meeting with people, I really say, to sum it up, King Cares is, as I say to the students, caring for yourself, caring for others, caring for the King community and beyond.
Thank you so much, Karen. So I do have some questions prepared to ask Clyde and Karen, but I would love for you to add your own questions. And actually, we have one from a parent already. And this one is in regard to your DEI initiatives. So Clyde, we'll kick this over to you. How does the school make sure that all children are included and seen without being singled out or defined primarily by their race? I think that's a question you get quite a bit, actually.
Thank you. That is a great question. And one of the things I will say first and foremost is that even by our defining and how we define diversity, it is in the broadness of it. The broadness of the fact that it's more than race, it's more than ethnicity, it's more than religion, it's more than sexual orientation. We really do take all those different things and we try to look to when we're talking about representation, we're talking about affirming aspects of one's identity. We start talking about identity literally from the beginning, almost, pre-K, kindergarten. We have projects in which students are able to come in and present aspects of who they are, where they're from. We definitely do not want anyone to feel like they are only boiled, everything about themselves comes down to their race, because the race is only really one aspect of one's identity. There are so many other things that make a person who they are. And so we really try to create spaces. When we talk about belonging, belonging really incorporates all those other things. When we talk about DEIB here, the B is very important to us. And so belonging is a sense of, is there something for me? And so, is there something for me that I can feel connected to this space, to this place, King School? And so, if we're going to do that and work to create a space like that, we certainly have to make sure that we're doing more things than just focusing on race. And so, it's regardless of racial identity, there are so many other things that we do and try to do to make sure that we include our student body and our families, for that matter, to bring any aspect of who they are and try to affirm that.
Thanks, Clyde. And sort of connected to that, you mentioned affinity groups when you did your overview of the program. Could you explain to our guests the difference between an affinity group and a club? And maybe after you're done with that, Karen could just explain a little bit how the clubs program works here at King.
Great. Yes. So our affinity groups, we have affinity groups in our middle school as well as our upper school. And one of the things that make them very similar to clubs is that all of our affinity groups are student driven, meaning that there haven't been instituted by the school. Nothing was created by the school to say we must have these. One big difference though between an affinity group and a club is that individuals, unless the affinity group expressly states, all the group members are share an aspect of an identity aligned with that affinity group. So, for instance, in our upper school, we have our BSU, which is the Black Student Union, or our JSAG, which is our Jewish Student Affinity Group. We also have a Neurodiversity Affinity Group. And so we have others as well. Unless they expressly state that, we are welcoming others outside, then that is for that the participation in that group, they all share a certain identity. Whereas in a club, for instance, like the Japanese Exchange Club, is more of an interest and they begin to explore aspects of Japanese culture, but that's separate from our, say, AAPI affinity group, which is our Asian American Pacific Islander affinity group. So I like to sometimes use those two as examples of the differences between a club and an affinity group. But and even our affinity groups are not based solely on race, to go back to that other question before, so it can really be a shared identity in which students want to explore and talk about within a safe space.
Thanks so much. Karen, you want to touch on the club
Sure.
program again?
So in the middle school and upper school, the clubs are proposed by the students. So they put forth proposals for a club that they're interested in once or twice during the school year, and that's how the clubs are formed in middle and upper school. The clubs also in middle and upper school run during the school day. So in middle school, it's during their flex period, and currently this year it's every D-Day. And in the upper school, the clubs meet every other week. So there's like a 2-week schedule that's set up. And the clubs meet our first lunch period in the upper school. We have 2 lunch periods. Within the club structures this year in middle and upper school, there is a middle school service learning club. So I work with some middle schoolers, and they come up with the projects and the partnerships that they want to have with the different organizations. In the upper school, there are 14 King Cares clubs. Many of those King Cares clubs have a connection with one of our local as well as national partner organizations. We also include our Ambassadors Club, which is part of our Missions Office Club, because a part of King Cares is caring also for our King community, as I had shared previously. And when the students are coming up with ideas or projects or activities, it's truly in collaboration with our partner organizations. The kids are using what they learn, what they hear, conversations with the people they engage with at the organizations, and really come up with ideas and projects that are to support the organizations we partner with. And it really, our partnerships are very reciprocal. And, several times a week, I get ideas from the organization and I bring it to the kids, and those are how some of our events and activities get created. In our lower school, after school, we run a lower school enrichment program that runs fall, winter, and spring seasons. And many of the teachers in the lower school will run an enrichment class. Say they might run we have a penmanship class running right now. We might have soccer. Within that enrichment session, there is a lower school King Cares Club. So currently for the fall session, we have 14 lower schoolers that are connected with that club. And with that, we do on-campus activities, as well as just this past Tuesday, we went and visited the nursing home, our local nursing home. And one of the goals that I have in working with all the students in the 3 divisions is, as much as possible, I like our upper school students to come and connect with our middle and lower when they are connecting on a project or activity that is for an organization that they all have a common interest with. And so that's a lot of that engagement that's also within the King community, but also with our connections that we have with our when we're off campus with our organizations.
Great. And one of the things I love so much about King is that we really value the club program and try to work it into the day in a way that kids can participate in that, as well as their athletic endeavors or any other sort of extra co-curricular programming. In addition to some of the clubs that Clyde and Karen have listed out, we have investment clubs, Model UN, debate, math team. So really a lot of different ways for kids and very robust programming. I've worked at a lot of schools, and I think King kids really get involved and pursue passions through the club programming as well. If there's a child who's maybe reluctant to join, I'm thinking of a new student who's not really sure. And again, I would maybe put this to both of you in terms of whether it's a club or affinity group or any other trying out for the play. How does the school sort of come together to really encourage kids to stick their neck out, especially as they're adjusting to a new community?
Well, I can say that when we're talking about community engagement, I always love that we sort of always say we have a team around each student. And, so part of that team is through our advisory program. Or the homeroom teachers in lower school. I'm an advisor of 15 juniors currently. And so, we sort of work together, and I always will talk to an advisee if they're not really quite sure or hesitant to join a club. I always start by asking questions. What are you interested in? What are you currently doing? And start there. And, we don't like students to feel like they have to sign up for 7 or 8 things. And particularly with upper schools, it will shift with what clubs they're connected with from their 9th, 10th into their 11th and 12th grade. Because really about 9th and 10th grade, we're about just explore, discover. And then as they go towards the end of their spring of their sophomore year into their junior year, it's like, where do you want to go deeper with? Where do you want to maintain and sustain that engagement? So, if someone is a little hesitant with our advisory program, we have several check-ins starting at the beginning of the school year and several times during the school year with one-on-one check-ins with our advisees, the same in the middle school and the same with the homeroom teachers. And I do think that that's a starting point. And then, kind of the advisor will also then connect the student where they have expressed their interest is with maybe another peer or a colleague that will kind of give them an overview and just say, try it, and we go from there.
And I would say, with like for instance, like the affinity groups and those and other clubs, one of the things I love about in the um upper school, they have like the club fair in which students are able to kind of go around and see the different things that are the clubs that we have, be able to talk to students. Um, I know also in upper school that they, for affinity groups, they do kind of at one of the assemblies, they kind of go up and they have little videos in which the affinity group leaders present like what the affinity group did, what they do when they meet. Sometimes they'll hold events like movie nights to kind of like drum up a little interest around if you want to come join us for this fun activity. And then they do other little fun things as well. Like just recently in the middle school, on their student council, they have DEIB ambassadors, and they sponsored a Diwali scavenger hunt where they had little deers around. You could go and find them, and if you could find one of them, you earned yourself a dress down day. So it's just little different things to again help folks feel like you can be who you are when you come here, and you don't have to leave aspects of your identity at the door.
Thanks, Clyde. And another question that you both may have answers to. On the other end of that sort of engagement perspective, how do you see these programs fostering leadership? Karen, do you want to start off with sort of how
Yeah.
clubs foster leadership?
Yeah, so our clubs do have leaders. We do have a thoughtful, particularly in upper school, kind of transition for leadership if some of the clubs are going to carry on into the following year. Students have to write and answer some questions if they would like to be a rising leader, as if we have seniors transitioning, out of that leadership role. But in working particularly within King Cares, but I also know colleagues do this in other ways too, is I always say to kids, you don't necessarily have to have the title leader to be the leader. Because of the integration and incorporation, we might have a student who might, yes, be a captain on an athletic team, but is part of one of the Inspirica club, but comes up with a wonderful idea of how to bring that team to partner with activities for the youth of that organization and in the club that she's a member of. And so that might be where she's going to lead that initiative for that club. So there are ways to be leaders, even if they don't necessarily have the title to the leader. And the goal that it is, and I would say this even starts in lower, middle, and upper in the conversations, is like, as the kids I work with that move through lower to middle, by 7th grade with our King Cares program, there's each grade in middle school has a program embedded with several King Care touch points during the school year. But by 7th grade, I say, if you're finding that you're asking more questions after an experience, or your heart beats faster, or you're curious, you might find that that's an area you want to continue to explore further as you move into the upper school, because there are touch points there. And what we're really looking for is for people to follow their interests, follow their passions, what they really, where they can use their strengths, and then also be able to engage meaningfully and also be able to talk about it meaningfully, because that's how they can also lead and also encourage younger peers as they're moving through the grades to try something. And so even if they see someone new to our school who might be hesitant, sometimes I'll partner them with someone who was just as hesitant maybe a year or two before.
And I would say, with affinity groups in particular, there are definitely ways in which we certainly sponsor or try to promote leadership. Number one, just even our structure, there are leaders of each of those groups. But also, just like with clubs, student clubs, you have to propose. You have to put forth a proposal. You have to speak to why this is happening, the reason for it. You have to go out and seek and find advisors for it. But also, when you're doing events, again, it is student driven. And so if you want to do something, then it's up to the group or the leadership within the group to propose that event. Why you're going to do it? How is it going to impact the community if it's, if so. And so those are some of the things we're trying to teach with if you come into a space such as that, how you can promote that type of leadership and leadership skills. And then also even those who are, for instance, like I just mentioned with the um, student council in the middle school. I mean, that was a student driven initiative in which they put forth, we would like to do this. Okay, great. How are you going to go about it? What materials do you need? How are you going to, it's a scavenger hunt. How do we not disrupt the school day, right? We're not hiding things in places where, we're not going to have students running in the classrooms looking for, the Dias. So how do what do you need to do? And so that's helping students think about as part of when you're a leader, those are some of the things you need to consider when you're putting forth an initiative. Like, how is this going to impact those around me other than it's just a cool idea? And so I think those are definitely some ways in which we, even within that sphere, create and try to promote leadership.
Thanks, Clyde. At King, we have a really active parents association. And I think one of the nice things about it is that there are sort of different levels of involvement from our parents. We have the executive board who sort of seem like they have full-time jobs at King. They're here a lot. And then we have parents who sign up for an hour at the bake sale at homecoming, or they join a committee and sort of work it into their lives the way it fits into their lives. I was wondering if each of you could just share the most direct ways that you work with the parents and the Parents Association. I know we have groups that you both work really closely with.
Well, regarding King Cares, there are two King Cares Parents Association coordinators that I work with. And then under that, we have several subcommittees that have connections with some of our local partner organizations. We had just had a recent PA King Cares kickoff meeting where we talk about where some of those connecting points are. So for example, we have a connection with Building One Community, with Inspirica, Midnight Run. We run a blood drive. But you don't necessarily have to be a part of one of those committees to still be connected with King Cares. There's so many different ways that families can feel like they can participate in events and activities and give as much time or as little time because we provide many opportunities. We started something last year as well, which was called the PA King Cares Coffee and Connections. Families were saying that they wanted to kind of take part and participate in projects similar to they were hearing from their students taking part during the school day in support of some of our partner organizations. So we run 3 coffees a year. Each coffee is connected with one of our local organizations. We kick off the coffee with one of our upper school students talking about their experience and what has inspired them and their connection that they've had with the organization over the years. We tend to have a coordinator from the organization come, and then we do a project. That is very similar to a project that the students do, or actually might be an extension of a project. Many of our projects, we're just getting ready to do one for Building One Community. We'll have a part to it that is all school. So we have a part that's lower school. The middle school will be adding a piece to it. Upper school will have 2 club meetings completing a project. And then the Parents Association will be also putting together and assembling what they basically exactly our Thanksgiving meal baskets that will be taking 40 to families connected with building one community. But that speaks to our community, where all parts of our community are connected in ways through King Cares as one example. We're enjoying connecting with each other, but also making an impact at the same time.
And I would say that I work certainly with the PA leadership in general. I mean, one of the things that I do every year is kind of talk with the classroom reps or things like that around how the strategies of, remind them of different strategies they can use and utilize to create that sense of belonging within those grade levels and things like that. But we also have within the PA, one of the committees is the KIND committee, which stands for King Inclusion and Diversity. And I work closely with them as they sponsor different events throughout the year, whether it's speakers, whether it's different social events. They do a potluck. In the past, they've done celebrations in which they honor and recognize different holidays and things that happen during like the winter time. I think they called it the Festival of Lights. So there are different events, and there's certainly one that I'm going to mention at the end. I'm using that one as I think for a question that might come up later. That is really a big event that we really like to use every year to celebrate all the different things that happen in our community. But working with the Parents Association is really key to this work, certainly in the DEIB space, because our goal is to make sure that families feel like they belong here, and so that partnership is very key to that.
Well, we are just about at the end. And as Clyde alluded to, my last question is I wanted each Clyde and Karen to talk about an event that they feel epitomizes the King community. Clyde, do you want to go since you
Sure.
have one in mind?
So yes, so I did have that one queued up. When you were talking about our Parents Association, every year in the spring, the PA sponsors, but the KIND committee in particular, what we call our Global Fair. And the Global Fair, it's really global and multicultural fair, really, because it celebrates and honors, it allows families to come and they take over the lower school gym and they just line it with tables and posters and food and music. And I won't say food again because that is a really big part of it. But it's honoring and acknowledging and recognizing and appreciating countries where families come from, states where families come from. The last couple of years, we've had boroughs of New York because they have their own sense of identity. If you're from Brooklyn, like what does that really mean, and how do you honor that and represent that? And so it's a huge event. The entire school community comes, whether it's your middle schoolers or upper schoolers come down during their free time. Um, our lower schoolers, they get little passports. They can go around and get stamps of all the different places they visited on their tour within that space. We have middle and upper school band and choir come and they sing songs and play songs. It's just a great time, and it really does show who we are as a community and how we truly live our virtues of respecting and being kind to each other and appreciating everything and all the things that we bring that make King King.
Thanks, Clyde. Karen, what's your pick?
Well, it was a tough one for me. But I'm going to touch on two briefly, if I may, but I would have to say homecoming weekend. It's a really true, and I want to say celebration of our community. Because homecoming, and I say weekend, we kick it off with the pep rally on Friday. It includes a spirit squad from our lower school. It is truly one where families come out and get involved in so many different ways for homecoming, which is on Saturday. And we're celebrating all our fall sports are playing on that day. But really, it's a community event and a full day event, and with lots of activities with students and families from all of the campus involved and planning. It's a big PA endeavor which they organize particularly for Saturday. And there are events from bouncy houses to face painting to arts and crafts to actual games and bouncy houses for the middle school as well. And really this past year, it's also a celebration of our alumni who come back too and truly look forward to it. And connecting with former teachers, and a lot of staff and faculty are part of the day as well. But it doesn't end on that Saturday, because that Sunday is we just had our 13th annual King Cares 5K, which is in support and partnership with Boys and Girls Club of Stamford and the Orphan Starfish Foundation, two of our longstanding partnerships. But that 5K is organized and led by student athletes, the fall athletes. And I always give them, and they know this, I feel like I give them so many shout outs during the school year, because not only did they all play hard the day before, they're back here on campus at 7:30 on Sunday morning, lining up the course, because it's not the same course as the cross country one. They're organizing the tent, they're registering participants, and having fun at the same time. And you know, this past was a record-breaking participation rate, but I also say it's the kids themselves. They challenged each other to get someone outside of King to show up for the event, and for two also great partnerships that we have and with our two organizations. And then just quickly, I have to give a shout out to the King of Spring, which has also grown. You know, homecoming is definitely an integration of the community with the PA, athletics, King Cares. King of Spring is definitely a weekend, again, of celebration of community. And that's usually what I say about King of Spring. It brings kind of where it's at the end of the year. We celebrate our spring sports on that Saturday. Sunday is our family service day. And last year we had 23 partner organizations represented on campus, with families and students coming out, doing activities in collaboration with those organizations. But then the second part of it is performing arts. And we have a pet adoption event right here on campus. And again, it grows each year. But why I shout out that, and that was hard for me to choose, is because all those morning activities are led by our upper school students who are connected with those organizations. Again, having many of them played that day before too, and coming back and, you know, feeling like they give back, and it becomes like a highlight of the weekend as well, particularly the furry animals, because everyone likes to see the animals. And last year, right on the spot, we had 7 animals got adopted that the day of. So it was a hard one for me to choose, because they really just, for me, exemplify how we all come together in so many ways, and work and celebrate community.
Well, since you've been here for 33 years, I'll allow the two choices. I can see how that would be picking. I hope this was helpful to those of you who joined us today. I hope that you can see why we love this community so much. If you haven't been to campus, please come. We'd really love to have you at one of our community events, in addition to any of our admission events. Thank you, Clyde and Karen, for your time, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.